This is Matthew Cratter from Trade University, and today I want to talk about some of the secrets of Bitcoin cold storage, what it is and how best to use it. I've been getting a lot of questions about this, so I thought I would compile all of the questions into a single video. And I think that even if you think you know everything about hardware wallets and recovery seeds and cold storage, I think you're still going to learn something new from this video. Now, we have two types of wallets when it comes to Bitcoin. We have hot wallets, and then we have cold wallets or cold storage. A hot wallet is just any Bitcoin wallet that is connected to the internet. Cold storage or a cold wallet is a Bitcoin wallet that is not connected to the internet. Some examples of hot wallets would be the mobile wallet on your phone, whether you have a Bitcoin app, whether it's Coinbase or Cash App or Strike or something like this, or one of the wallets like Moon or Wallet of Satoshi. These would be hot wallets because they're on your phone, and your phone is almost always connected to the internet. Also, another example of a hot wallet would be a hot wallet in your web browser, and these tend to be the least secure types of hot wallets. The ones on your phone are a little bit more secure than a web browser-based hot wallet. Now, hot wallets are very convenient. They're very easy to use to receive Bitcoin and to send Bitcoin, but they should not be used to store large amounts of Bitcoin. So the rule of thumb I like to tell people is don't store more money, more Bitcoin in your hot wallet than you would keep in your purse or than you would keep in the physical wallet in your back pocket. So depending where you live, this may be $10, $20, or up to a couple $100, but most people don't walk around with more money than that in their pockets. So that's an example of a hot wallet, either a browser-based wallet or a wallet on your phone. The best example of a cold storage wallet or a cold wallet would be these hardware wallets, which I've talked about before. Trezor is probably the best known brand. It's a good brand, I think. Blockstream makes the Blockstream Jade, which I also like. And then really probably the best of these three, but also the most difficult to use and the least user-friendly. It's not that difficult to use, but it's less user-friendly than the Trezor or the Blockstream Jade would be the cold card. But these are very, very cool hardware wallets. As I've said before, I do not like Ledger hardware wallets simply because their code is not open source. And this is a little bit counterintuitive if you haven't thought about before, but you really should prefer in many cases, or in most cases, especially when it comes to Bitcoin, you should prefer open source code. Bitcoin software itself is open source. And the nice thing about open source software and firmware is you have thousands of eyeballs that are constantly scanning the code, looking for bugs, looking for backdoors. If the code is closed source, you really have to trust the issuer of it. I'm sure that Ledger is an honest, good company at this point, but you never know when or if it could be taken over by bad actors. And it's much better. This is really the ethos of Bitcoin, which is to verify for yourself rather than trusting. If you can't read code, I cannot really read code. I can read simple code. But if you can't read code, it's still important that the code is open source, even if you can't personally read it, because there are a lot of people looking at it, looking for backdoors, looking for ways to hack into it. And the white hat actors will always notify the company about these, and also broadcast these holes on Twitter and elsewhere in chat rooms, so people are aware of them, and then they get fixed. So open source is definitely much better than closed source, and for this reason, I would recommend you stick with Trezor, Blockstream Jade, or Cold Card over Ledger. Using a Ledger is probably better than leaving your coins on an exchange like Coinbase, but it's still, I think, an inferior solution to using an open source wallet. Now, a common misconception among beginners: hardware wallets do not store your Bitcoin. And I know even in this video, I've been talking about it as if your Bitcoin is stored on a hardware wallet. This is more of a metaphor that makes it easy to talk about it. What's technically stored in your hardware wallet is just your Bitcoin private keys that allow you to move and control the Bitcoin that's attached to that particular address. Your Bitcoin itself, it's just an entry. It's a digital entry in a globally dispersed open ledger, which we call the Bitcoin blockchain. So if you put your Bitcoin on a hardware wallet and the hardware wallet falls over the side of the boat and sinks to the bottom of the ocean, this is not the end of the world, as we'll see, because your Bitcoin is not contained inside of it in the same way that a chunk of gold or a bar of gold would be contained inside of a safe. Hardware wallets just store your Bitcoin private keys in a secure manner, and they store them offline, which is very important, as we're going to see. Even though you plug your hardware wallet into your USB port of your laptop or desktop, usually when you're setting it up, the private keys never touch the internet. So when you want to do a transaction using a hardware wallet, the transaction is basically sent inside the hardware wallet, where the hardware wallet signs the transaction using those private keys. The transaction is then sent back outside of the hardware wallet to your desktop or laptop, and from there it's broadcast over the internet to the Bitcoin network. So this is the real advantage of hardware wallets, is they keep your private keys offline. And this is in stark contrast to hot wallets, where your private keys are visible. They're usually encrypted and stored fairly securely, but there is that moment when you're signing a transaction that you're vulnerable in a hot wallet, and a bad actor online might be able to see your keys. It's unlikely, but as we said, if you're storing large amounts of Bitcoin, even unlikely scenarios become very important to guard against. This is another question I get quite frequently. What happens if Trezor or Blockstream or Coldcard or Ledger go out of business? Or what happens if my hardware wallet is destroyed, a tornado hits my house, or there's a flood or a fire or something like this? Well, when you first set up your hardware wallet, it will make you generate what's called a recovery seed. There's lots of different names that this goes by: recovery seed, backup, seed backup, seed phrase, seed recovery phrase, recovery phrase. There's no real standard terminology. I tend to call it a backup or recovery seed. But what this is it's just 12 or 24 words in a certain order. And these are what are called BIP39 words. So here's the word list that they're generated from. And basically this list, these English words in a certain order, are a way of representing your private keys. So when you first set up your hardware wallet, it's going to generate a 12 or 24 word phrase, and it's important to write this down and know the order of the words and make sure you write it down in a very legible way. But basically, if Trezor or Blockstream or Coldcard went out of business, or if your hardware wallet were destroyed, you'd basically just take your 12 or 24 words, you'd enter them into a new hardware wallet, technically a new BIP39, which is that word list, compatible hardware wallet. But most hardware wallets these days are compatible. And if there were a situation where all these companies went out of business, there's still ways of building your own hardware wallet. You could also enter this 12 or 24 word recovery seed into a software wallet. It'd be a little bit more risky that way, but basically your recovery seed, your 12 or 24 words, is your Bitcoin. It is your ownership of your Bitcoin. And so if Trezor went out of business or your hardware wallet were destroyed, you just enter these 12 or 24 words into a new hardware wallet or possibly a software wallet, and then all of your Bitcoin receiving addresses, all your private keys, everything would be reconstituted on that new hardware wallet. When you set up your hardware wallet and these 12 or 24 words are generated, this is all done remotely on your hardware wallet, inside of your hardware wallet. It's not something that Trezor sees or that Coldcard sees or that Blockstream is able to see. And we can verify this because we know their code is open source, and we can check for this. You can also have multiple hardware wallets. So you could buy 3 Trezors, you could load them all up with the same recovery seed or the backup phrase, and they would all then contain the same private keys to the same Bitcoin. So you could have one at home, you could travel with one, for example, though that's not highly recommended to travel with a hardware wallet if you can avoid it. Especially, you probably don't want to go through an airport or across a border holding a hardware wallet. If you ever needed to escape your country, though, you could cross a border. You could have $1 billion on your hardware wallet, and if you just knew your 12-word recovery phrase or your 24-word recovery phrase, you could walk across the border with $1 billion stored in your head and then reconstitute it on a new hardware wallet on the other side of the border. So it's important to understand you can have multiple hardware wallets with the same recovery seed. Anyone who has your recovery seed, this is very important, can put it into a Bitcoin hot wallet or hardware wallet and use it to steal your Bitcoin, i.e. to send it to a Bitcoin address that they control and that you do not. So your 12 or 24 word recovery seed is very, very important. You should never take a picture of it and upload it to the cloud where someone can see it. You should never put it in email. It should never go online. It should only be stored on a piece of paper, maybe engraved into a plate of steel. And there are lots of versions of this that you can buy online, different ways. Paper is probably okay as long as you have different copies. Obviously, paper can get eaten by moths, or it can eventually decay, or it can catch on fire and be destroyed by water. So you have to think about the best way to store those 12 words, and you don't want to just leave them on your desk. You don't want to put them in an email, because there are bots online that are always scanning for 12 words or 24 words. And if you put it online, there's a good chance it will get stolen and your Bitcoin will be stolen. After you set up your hardware wallet, you generate your backup phrase, your recovery seed. You can then totally erase or wipe your hardware wallet and just keep that recovery seed secure after you've loaded Bitcoin, sent it to that address. So you don't even need to keep your hardware wallet with anything on it. You could have an empty hardware wallet, and then you could have your 12-word recovery phrase stored in a different place or in the same location. And then you could just, whenever you needed to make a transaction to send your Bitcoin or spend your Bitcoin, you just would put that recovery seed into your hardware wallet, and then you could use it to sign a transaction. Here is I believe this is available in different languages as well. If you're in a different country with a different language, there will be a different list of words, but I would say that the English list is obviously the most common. This is 2,048 words in a certain order. It seems counterintuitive that this would be secure, but it's actually highly secure because these words have to be in a certain order. It's important to know also that you do not need to be in possession of your hardware wallet to receive Bitcoin. Your hardware wallet does not need to be plugged into your computer to receive Bitcoin. I believe it was Peter Schiff a couple years ago who made this point that you always need to have your hardware wallet plugged in, and he was justly ridiculed for this. In order to receive Bitcoin onto your hardware wallet, in other words, onto one of the addresses whose private keys are controlled by your hardware wallet, all you need is a fresh address generated by your hardware wallet. So you could generate this fresh address, bring it with you wherever you go. There is a privacy risk if you leave it online or someone sees it. They can look up and see how many Bitcoin are in that location, in that Bitcoin address. But there's not really a security problem there, apart from the privacy risks. So you can generate a fresh address, bring it with you wherever you go, and then leave your hardware wallet and your recovery seed at home or in a different location. As I always say, it's important to use a fresh or new address for every transaction, for every receiving transaction of Bitcoin, to make it more difficult for chain surveillance firms to track you. Your hardware wallet does not need to be connected to your computer in order to receive Bitcoin, but to send Bitcoin, it does need to be connected to your computer because you need to sign the transaction using your private key. So it's important to distinguish between receiving Bitcoin, where you just need an address for that, but sending Bitcoin, where you actually have to sign using your private keys. In that case, you will need to have a hardware wallet in your possession, or at least your 12-word recovery seed in order to do the signature. In this lecture, we've been mostly just talking about single-sig, single signature, which is signing with one hardware wallet. This is infinitely better than leaving your coins on an exchange like Coinbase or Kraken or Gemini, where they store your Bitcoin for you, they control your private keys, and if they decide to, or if the government orders them to, they can decide not to give you your Bitcoin back to you. They can freeze your account, for example. So that's the reason to use a hardware wallet and withdraw your coins from the exchange. So that's single-sig. Multi-sig is basically where you need to sign a transaction with multiple hardware wallets. And there's usually a quorum required. So you need to sign using 2 out of 3 hardware wallets, or 3 out of 5, or 5 out of 7. Really, there can be any sort of combination up to something like 11 out of 12, possibly even more. So that's multi-sig, multi-signature. This really is the gold standard of Bitcoin cold storage. This is what everyone should be using once you reach the certain point where you have a significant portion of your life savings stored in Bitcoin. Nice thing about multisig is you can store these hardware wallets that are used to sign in different geographical locations. And so your house is no longer a honeypot. Someone can break into your house, put a gun to your head, and still not be able to take your Bitcoin. They can obviously do personal harm to you, but they can't take your Bitcoin because they would need to basically ferry you around, pick up all these different hardware wallets that may be stored in different places, like a bank vault, a different state, a different country, buried in the ground somewhere, in your attic somewhere, at various houses, one of them with a friend or a lawyer or a relative, etc. And so an attacker would need to ferry you around geographically, pick up these hardware wallets, and get you to sign a transaction with them in order to steal your Bitcoin. And you would also want to protect all your hardware wallets with PIN codes, which is similar to protecting your phone with a PIN code as well. And so it becomes, when you use multi-sig with PIN codes and your hardware wallets are geographically dispersed, this is not just good for you, but it is also good for the Bitcoin ecosystem, because thieves will begin to realize, especially if everyone starts using multisig, that there's no point breaking into Bitcoiners' houses because they're not using paper wallets. They don't have their Bitcoin just stored on a single sig solution. So this doesn't just strengthen your personal security, but it also strengthens the robustness and the security of the whole Bitcoin network. This is in contrast to gold. Gold is very difficult to store. You either have to trust your bank or some custodian to store it, or you keep it in your house and you have a lot of tools of self-defense and you hope that an army doesn't come in and steal it from you. So this is another way in which Bitcoin is a much better solution for storing your life savings. I talk more about multisig in this video, which I will link to below. If you want to start with multisig, there are two good companies out there that I'm aware of and that I've experimented with, and I'm not being paid by them, and I can't guarantee their services or anything, but these two look like legit companies to me: Unchained Capital, unchained.com, and Casa Keys, keys.casa. I'll link to them in the description notes below so that you can check them out. The only problem with this is you are leaking some privacy if you use a third party like this. They're not custodians because you will actually be holding your Bitcoin. But what these companies do, for example, in the case of 2 out of 3 multisig, you'll control two keys or 2 hardware wallets, and then they will control the third one and they can use it to sign for you. But in the process, you have to give them your KYC data, your personal information, and then you have this link, Unchained Capital. You have this risk. Unchained Capital just had a data leak where their own systems were not compromised, but their email marketing provider, which is ActiveCampaign, or which used to be ActiveCampaign, was compromised, and the list of names and not the amount of Bitcoin they had or their private keys or anything like that, because Unchained doesn't store that. But email addresses and names, I believe, were leaked, and then you could use this on the dark web to cross-reference and find people's home addresses, etc. So this is the problem with using a third-party multi-sig solution. I do teach you in my Bitcoin course how to do a do-it-yourself multi-sig solution using multi-vendor. It's also called a multi-vendor solution because you use different brands of hardware wallets to make it even more secure. So I think this is a much better way of doing it, basically building your own multi-sig vault, and then you don't have to worry about your data being linked, even by perfectly good companies like Unchained Capital. Again, this leak, the Bitcoin was not at risk, but it does put people's personal safety at risk, because if someone finds out how much Bitcoin they have, they could organize a group of people and go to that individual's house. And if they're not using multisig, they may be in trouble. Even if they are using multisig, this is not something you really want to happen to you and your family. So I think it's important to realize there are two levels here, and don't let the potential complexity of this lead you to inaction. The thing that everyone should be doing, if you own more than a tiny amount of Bitcoin, if you own more than, let's say, $100 or $200 worth of Bitcoin, you really should not be keeping it on an exchange, and you should not be keeping it in a hot wallet, especially if it's a significant amount of money to you. So the beginner levels, you basically buy a Bitcoin using a KYC exchange. You have to give up your personal information. You withdraw it and hold it on your own hardware wallet. This is quite secure. This is really a good way to get started. I talk more about how to do this in this free video, which I'll link to below, where I teach you how to buy Bitcoin using Strike and then withdraw it and hold it on a hardware wallet. The next level, though, really the advanced level, is to learn how to buy Bitcoin anonymously, learn how to do coin join, and then learn how to move it into a do-it-yourself vault, multi-sig storage vault that you have set up. And this is something that I talk about in my paid course. There are many hours of lectures about this. It's actually quite complicated. I have 4 lectures on how to buy Bitcoin anonymously without KYC. I talk about how to run your own Bitcoin node and set it up with a Trezor hardware wallet in Single-sig. Also, how to build a multi-sig vault and how to do it the right way, how to do coin join, etc. And I'm constantly adding new lectures to this. I think I'll next add a lecture on how to do mobile multi-sig. So if you really want to take it to the next level after you've exhausted all my free videos on YouTube, you can check out the paid videos. I'll put a link in the description notes below. One low monthly price gets you access to all the courses, which includes all my trading courses, momentum stocks, how to trade futures, options, how to day trade, how to swing trade, how to make money with IPOs, etc. There's really a ton of material here, as well as some lectures on financial statement analysis, how to trade in a bear market, and also how to invest in real estate. So I've really been expanding the offerings over these years. The course that most people are interested in right now, though, is the Bitcoin course, and I'll put a link to that below. If you're interested, you can just scroll down to the bottom, click Get It Now. That'll take you to this checkout page. And if you've watched this far, I want to give you a special coupon code. You scroll down here, click coupon code, and type in YT99, as in YouTube 99. Click Update, and that'll take $26 off. So instead of being just $125 for 30 days access, you'll get access to everything, including the multi-sig course, the coin join, the multi-sig lectures, the coin join lectures, the buying Bitcoin anonymously lectures, and all the other courses as well. You'll get everything for just $99 for 30 days access. You can watch the whole Bitcoin course, cancel, and you won't be charged again. There are no long-term contracts or anything like that. But if there is stuff that you like added, especially very advanced topics in Bitcoin, I'm constantly adding new lectures at subscribers' request. So be sure to check this out after you check out all the free material that I made available on YouTube. But when you want to take it to the next level, when you start having significant sums of your life savings stored in Bitcoin, it's important to learn these advanced techniques, many of which I'm unfortunately not able to talk about on a public platform, especially things like CoinJoin. This particular platform doesn't seem to like people to talk about that, as well as some of the non-KYC stuff. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.